maybe like 3 to 5 years ago when I really wasn't all that bright, I would have told you like, price action is all that matters, blah, 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 blah. And it is, like, don't get me wrong. But if you really want to hold a name for like 100, 200, 300%, I mean, you better know the story. You better know the theme. You better really believe in it, or else you're going to capitulate on, a 10, 15% pullback. So I actually think that I'm a lot more fundamental than the average person would think. I read a ton. I really do get to know the story. Oftentimes it's a product I use, or really I pay a ton of attention to what my wife is using, things like Peloton or Pinterest. These are all things she's using, or even like my little brother who has zero interest in the stock market, or, one of my buddies who literally has an oil company. These guys use like obvious products. And when they use like a new product that to them is obvious, that's when the light should kind of go on. Like my sister-in-law uses Stitch Fix. And so kind of when it comes on my radar, oh, she likes it. It's like, all right, there could be something going on here. And then you do let the price action confirm what it is that you're doing, for sure. Like I trade off the chart. I trade based on the price action, but I am not the guy who's buying like the high flyer on a volume scan because it's going higher and I've never heard of the company before. Like I like to know what I'm trading.
Very cool. Could you kind of explain, once you've kind of heard something from maybe seeing products that your family is using, how does that come up into your process and you actually go ahead, investigate what it's all about, and then ultimately trade it? So how do you find the stocks that you trade, basically?
Sure. So, I basically just find them. I do look at the new highs list. I look at big gap ups. Like I love trading post earning per share bull flags. It's definitely one of my favorite types of trades. I love big bases. So if there's a big base and then there's like a catalyst that can push it out on volume, that's great for me. But if you look at some of the names I trade, like Pinterest, Peloton, Uber, Stitch Fix, like these are all like things that we know. Now, something like Jemiah, I may not understand that, but I understand, like I can spin the theme in my head, like, oh, it's the Amazon of Africa. And then I feel like, okay, I trade this. Or like Fastly, Cloud Edge, the edge of your network. I see everybody moving to cloud infrastructure. Oh, we need security. Like, I don't know what CrowdStrike does, but I understand the concept, protecting ourselves and everybody moving online. So once I understand that conceptually, then I'll start paying attention to the stock. I don't know if that answered your question, but.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this a little bit before we actually start recording, but how do you kind of screen for these stocks? Or are you only kind of looking at what's out there in the real world and then taking that back, looking at the chart and seeing if it looks interesting?
Sure. So, I'm always paying attention to what's moving. I pay attention to Ticker Monkey Chat, what some of those guys are doing. If there's a cool name, I pay attention to stuff like, the election I thought was going to be good for green energy. So I started doing a little more research. I found TPIC that way. Mm-hmm. So like a stock like Plug, which is a stock where I don't own any of it. I've missed this whole move. It was on my radar months ago. I had it actually, if we pull it up, I bet I have lines drawn on it down in here. Never traded it, but naturally when something starts going up, I want to try to look for a spot on board. Now this wouldn't be like a sizable position for me because I don't truly understand it. Whereas something like Tesla would, because I believe in it and I really get it. So that also plays into my position size and kind of how well I feel like I know the company.